How's it going, movie and TV fans? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different to what I usually do. It's not a review, it's actually my ranking of the 27 James Bond films. Now keep in mind, before we start, keep in mind this is my personal opinion. So there's that, my opinion. It's also going into the fact that No Time to Die is in fact included on this list. But obviously I've only seen it 6 times, which is about the same time I've seen the other films, I can't lie. But you know, it just might bear in mind, and also bear in mind that this list was done back when I did the reviews on the channel, with the exception of one change that I did, that I didn't know why that film was so low on the list. I'll talk about it when we get to that film, so I'll keep you on your toes and stuff. But that was changed, and obviously I had to put No Time to Die in a place as well. So there's that. But I'm also not including Casino Royale 1954, the TV movie, because I just don't think it's needed, and also I've not got any music I can put to associate it with it at all. Obviously, music-wise, there's only 2 substitutions I've had to use, and that's obviously The Never Say Never Again, because that soundtrack has been delisted from Spotify, and that's what I'm using to blast music here. So, and the other one, which I was didn't know was going to happen, but it was, in fact, The World Is Not Enough, which was recently all instances of that track delisted from Spotify. Everywhere, all of it. There was a version of it on the Absolute Garbage album, and there was a version on the soundtrack for Words Not Enough, which was the only track listenable on that soundtrack on all of Spotify, and it was also on the Best of Bond official anniversary version on Spotify. All of those have been delisted, so I've had to use a version by the Soundtrack Orchestra. So, but that's the only substitutes, but you might hear the music is a bit different. Everything else is the actual versions, I assure you. I assure you, everything is how it's supposed to be. So let's get started with our with number 27. Number 27, Never Say Never Again, 1983. Now, this is one of the 2 unofficial films. I hate this film with a burning, loathing passion. It is fucking shit. The only good things about it, I think, are Klaus Maria Brandauer as Largo, and I think and Fatima Blush is a great character in this movie. I can't remember who plays her, but she's a fantastic character in this movie. Other than that, the rest of it's just boring. There's no fun action. The music is bland. It's just not a good film, and I don't like it, in my opinion. It's literally the worst unofficial Bond film. But like I said, it's an unofficial one, so we've got, you know, it's a bunch of problems to do with it, and fucking just terrible production value, horrendous music, a very shit script, all makes for a terrible movie. On top of the fact it's a remake of a movie that came out nearly 30 years before. It came out nearly 20 years before this movie came out. You know, all of that together just makes a movie that's fucking not worth anyone's time, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Now we move on to number 20. Number 26. And my least favourite of the official James Bond films, 1965's Thunderball. Now, I have to say right at the bat, Sean Connery is brilliant here. The music is fantastic. I think Claudia Aga is really good here, and so is Lucia Herbert. I think a lot of the acting is brilliant. I think a lot of the problems with this film is not necessarily the script, the acting, the music, or anyone other than just the way the story's told. The biggest problem I have with this film, and a lot of people have with it, is that the audience is told way too much information ahead of time, and that's really what makes this film a pain to sit through, because you know too much in advance. It moves really slowly through a lot of the time. It's only two and a half hours, I think, but it feels so much longer than that, because it just really takes its time to even go anywhere, and it tells the audience too much information. So we spend most of the time knowing this information and watching our protagonist or protagonist catch up on this information that we as the audience already know, which is just a terrible way to set a film up, period, and is why this film was my least favourite. Like I said, this ranking changes quite often, but for now, this is my least favourite of the official James Bond films. So coming in at number 25, we have Moonraker, 1979. Now, you see, with this one, I can have fun with this one quite a lot of the time, compared to Thunderbolt. I think, sure, it's an outrageous concept, but Michael Lonsdale gives a fucking phenomenal performance as Hugo Drax. Obviously, Richard Kiel as Jaws. I think Roger Moore is on very top form here as well. Lois Chiles is fantastic as the Bond girl as well here, but I just think the plot is just a bit over the top sometimes, and I just find it a bit bland and boring in places. Not the worst film I've seen in my life, but I think coming after the success and the absolute magical film that was The Spy Who Loved Me, and also this, having meant to have been For Your Eyes Only, but being changed in Moonraker because of the success of Star Wars, it feels a bit tacked on, honestly, because that's literally the only reason why this is Moonraker. Because if you watch The Spy Who Loved Me, it says James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only, but the next film after The Spy Who Loved Me is Moonraker, and the decision was made to do Moonraker because it was the space one, and Star Wars was so successful, so it just feels a bit, obviously coming out the same year as Spy Who Loved Me, it was very successful, so it just feels a bit tacked on, and that's what I don't like about it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Moonraker. Then coming in at number 24 is an interesting one, to say the least. It's 1967's Casino Royale, the spoof movie. Now, I can't stop giggling thinking of this movie, because when put up against all these movies, it's really not that good. But if you take it out of that perspective of it being a Bond movie even, and just as a movie, this is just, they should play this movie to sick patients, I think, because it's some of the most fun you can have watching a film ever. And there's some of the times where you're laughing with it, some of the time you're laughing at it. It's goofy, it's over the top, it's just absolutely fucking insane, and that's why I love it. I think the best scene to portray the just absolute insanity of this movie is without a doubt the finale in the casino lobby, which is just fucking hell. That scene is just the most craziest shit in the world, and that's what I like about this movie so much. It's just fucking cuckoo, over the top. Anyone who was anyone in the 60s was in this movie, and that's what makes it so fucking hilarious to watch. And I just think it's a brilliant movie. Well, it's not a brilliant movie, but it's just one that I can just sit down and have so much fun watching, because it's so funny and over the top. The music, obviously, is a famous part of this movie. I've got it on 2 LP vinyl behind me and CD, but it's a very important part for this movie's history, because it was one of the most important records for audiophiles everywhere. And it's actually a very good soundtrack by Burt Bacharach, and you're hearing the piece by Herb Alpert and the Triana Brass, the Triana Brass, so yeah. And obviously this is an Oscar-winning film, by the way, because it won for the look of Best Original Song for The Look of Love by Dusty Springfield. So the fact I can sit here and tell you that this is an Oscar-winning movie says it all. Anyway, in at number 3, we have 1962's Doctor No. Now, obviously, this is where it all begins, and I think Sean Connery is perfect here. I think one of the things that brings the film down a bit is definitely the music. This movie used to be a lot lower on my list. It's gone up a lot recently, as I just find this movie a lot more enjoyable than I used to find it. It's a fun tale. It's a very well told story. The one weakness I think it has is that we don't see our main villain until literally the last hour of the film. So that's the one gripe that a lot of people have with this film. But overall, I think everyone's fantastic. The Felix Leiter in this movie is one of my favourites. Jack Lord, I think. I've forgotten the name. What's his name? For fuck's sake. The character played by John Kitzmiller, Bond's buddy, helps him go through, and he dies from the tank. I can't remember his name, but he's a really fun character as well. I think, it's a very well. It set the foundation. It obviously set the foundation for Bernard Lee as M. Not Desmond Llewellyn's Q though, fun enough, but Lewis Maxwell as Miss Moneypenny, Sean Connery, James Bond. It set those things into motion, and without it, we wouldn't be sat here experiencing the 25th film. So we owe a lot to this movie, and I still think it's a very enjoyable tale, in my opinion. Ursula Andress is fantastic as the Bond girl here, and it's got so many iconic moments, including the the famous scene of the Bond James Bond, and also walking out of the water. So yeah, that's fun. But in at number 22, we have Quantum of Solace. Now, the two movies I juggle a lot about in this position, you'll see in a minute, is this and Die Another Day. And I can't lie, both those two movies or this movie and Die Another Day, are just, they're not the best structured movies, but I found myself enjoying Quantum of Solace a lot more the last two times I watched it. And I think it's a fine movie. It's an enjoyable movie. I think Daniel Craig is brilliant here. I think the music here is also really fantastic. For David Arnold's final soundtrack as a James Bond composer, as of now at least, he does a fantastic job. The music is brilliant here, like I said. I think, there are some moments where it's not well paced. I think it is a bit drawn out at times, but it is the shortest James Bond movie, only coming in at 1 hour and 56 minutes. But I still think it's quite a lot of, there's enjoyabilities about it. It's not a shit movie, hence why it being at 22 and not 27 or something like that, where it used to be. It was never going to be 27, I meant 26. But I just think there's so much more you can do with this movie, and I think a lot of the problems it has is purely just because of the behind-the-scenes problems that happened around the time it came out. The writers' strike, there was an actors' strike as well, so I think it was just put into production at the wrong time, and it was rushed after the success of Casino Royale. I don't blame them, but I think if they'd waited maybe another year or so, this movie had come out in 2009, then I think it would have definitely had a higher up quality than it version did, and obviously a lot of its problems are due to behind-the-scenes stuff that isn't its fault. But what can I say? Quantum of Solace coming in at number 21, we have Die Another Day from 2002. Now, this was the movie that came out the closest to me being born, coming out a year before I was born in 2002. And for a while, this used to be my favourite James Bond movie. I can't lie. And just looking at this poster reminds me now why I put this one above Quantum of Solace, because this is like both Quantum of Solace and Die Another Day are bland movies, but this is fun bland, silly bland, whereas Quantum of Solace is serious bland, and I think that's what makes me enjoy this movie a lot more. It's just an over-the-top goof fest that I really enjoy. I think Pierce Brosnan's fantastic here. A lot of the acting is brilliant. The music so is pretty fun as well. The plot and the invisible car thing, I just can have a blast watching this movie. I can't lie. Is it the pinnacle of the Bond franchise? No. Do I hate myself for used to thinking it was the best film in the franchise? No, I don't, because we all have our opinions, and that was just my opinion back then. I just think that it's a movie that can, have a few places here that needs to be moved on, and I think it's just a movie that needs a few repeat viewings for people to fully understand where it's coming from. But like I said, it's a fun movie and I enjoy it. So up next in 20th place is A View to a Kill, 1985, Roger Moore's final film as James Bond. There's a lot about this film that I enjoy. I think, for one, Max Zorin is a fucking fantastic villain. He is played brilliantly by Christopher Lloyd, I can't lie. The soundtrack here is brilliant. Duran Duran's song is actually far better than the actual film as a whole, I can't lie. And obviously, it's just at this point where everyone's starting to look just a little bit old, specifically Roger and Lois Maxwell. And I think it was the right decision to change Moneypennies as well for the next one, because it would have been incredibly weird having Timothy Dalton flirting with an aging Lois Maxwell. So I understand doing that, but this was a nice, fun, adventurous swan song for everyone who had been with Bond for... Some of them for literally just Lois Maxwell, who had been with Bond since 1962, and although Desmond Llewellyn and Robert Brown were going to continue to play their characters up until, well, 2 more films for Robert Brown after this one, and up until his unfortunate death after the release of The World Is Not Enough in 1999 for Desmond Llewellyn. We'll get to that. They also still come off as fun and fantastic characters here as well, and I think the plot can go all over the place, but I think, like I said, one of the things that makes this film so good is Max Zorin as Bond, and I just still think some of the chases are brilliant. The fire truck chase is fantastic. I just think it's a film that you can, if you sit down and watch it a couple of times, you can really, really enjoy it, and that's what happened to me. So, yeah. Coming in at number 19, we have Spectre, released in 2015. Now, I can't lie to you when I say that when I first saw this movie on October 26th, 2015, for the very first time, I came out of it thinking, oh my god, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life, when, looking back on it now, it's not that. But what it is still a fun, enjoyable movie, starring one of the best actors to play James Bond in recent memory. Well, the only one in recent memory, I can't lie. It's just, I have to admit, one thing I really have to put now is just, I love the trailer for this movie. I think it's the main trailer, the 2-minute and 34-second one. I love that trailer and the music in that trailer. It's one of my favourite trailers ever. But I remember when this movie came out, and it was the first movie I saw when I was a big Bond fan at the time, because obviously I'd seen Skyfall before, and that was me getting into my Bond phase. But I was a much bigger Bond fan then in 2015 than I was back in 2012, and even now I'm a bigger Bond fan now, seeing No Time to Die, than I was in 2015. But 2015 was the year I started high school, so when this movie came out, I had been in high school for under a month, and I'd seen it with 2 of my closest friends at the time, and it was a great film. I enjoyed it very much. I loved it. I think Sam Smith's song is brilliant, but there's just, now looking back on it, the biggest problem for me, unfortunately, is the soundtrack. It's either bland or just reused from Skyfall, and I know Thomas Newman is capable of so much more. Skyfall and 1917 proves that he is capable of some of the most beautiful and fantastic music ever put to film. But I just think making this film that he just didn't give a fuck, because he reused most of the music as reused from Skyfall, and if it isn't, it's bland and boring. The only good piece is the opening piece, which is called Los Moritos Van something or other, and it's a really good piece, but that's the only piece from the Spectre soundtrack that's even worth listening to now. But I love Christoph Waltz as Ernst von Blofeld here, and I love the DB10. It's one of my favourite cars ever. But I do have to admit, something about that just nitpicks me a little bit, is the fact that this car was made for this film, this James Bond film, and in the film it's taken away from him, and then it's then said it's now for 009, and I think that just annoys me a little bit, because it's a car that's made for this film, and to say, oh, we just stole it instead of being given to it by MLQ is what really bugs me a little bit. But that's just personal preference at the end of the day. But overall, Spectre is still an enjoyable, fun film. If you go back and watch it now, I can have enjoyment out of it. I think there's a lot of good things about it. Dave Bautista is definitely underused here, because he only says one word, and that's shit, and then he dies. So, but I do like the silent but deadly type, like Jaws. I think I get what they were going for, but I think they had a really talented actor who could work well when he opened his mouth, and they decided to... Not that Richard Kiel couldn't do that, but what I'm saying is Richard Kiel was a type of menacing that he only had to just stand and look at you, and you shit your pants right there and then. But with Dave Bautista, sure, he's menacing, but I think he's more menacing if he opens his mouth and says shit, you know? But in this film, he doesn't, so that's the problem. But yeah, coming up next, in 18th place, we have You Only Live Twice. 1967's You Only Live Twice. Now, there's so many things I love about this film. I think Sean Connery gives a decent performance here, but one of the most outstanding things here is John Barry's absolutely beautiful Oriental-inspired score here, which is the pinnacle of just beautiful. I think this film was fantastically well shot. I think the hollowed out volcano base is one of the best pieces of production design, set design that Ken Adam has done in his life. It is literally the greatest piece of set design I've seen in my entire life. It's fucking brilliant. I think the setting is fantastic. I know a lot of people love seeing Japan, and specifically countries in that territory. For me personally, specifically Japan, but it be portrayed in movies and stuff, because I love seeing the culture of it, and I think this movie is one that really shows you that, but in a time capsule format of 1967 Japan, which is even cooler, I think. I love Taiga Tanaka in this movie. He's so good. He's as a fantastic ally, and both the Bond girls here, Aki and Kissy, are fantastic as well. I think they're both brilliant as Bond girls. I think Q here has a funny, fantastic role as well. And although it is apparent that Sean Connery just doesn't give much of a fuck towards the end of this movie, or in most of this movie, I can't lie, it's just interesting to think that this was the first movie directed by Lewis Gilbert, who would go on to direct another movie 10 years after this one came out, in The Spy Who Loved Me, and also its follow-up Moonraker, which you can see a lot of similarities between the plots in those movies. But it's also something interesting to note is that this film was written by one Roald Dahl, which is really weird to me. But yeah, I think obviously it goes without a doubt, Blofeld here is absolutely fucking fantastic, and I just love the setting, and the cultural significance of this movie is brilliant. And yeah, that's You Only Live Twice. Coming up in 17th place is a movie that I used to not hate, but it was never one of my favourites, but upon rewatching it, I really found myself enjoying it a lot more than I used to. I think the action is very well presented here in Tomorrow Never Dies. Obviously we talk about Tomorrow Never Dies, 1997, but I think the action is incredibly well presented. The car chase with the BMW is brilliant. David Arnold's score, oh my god, it's one of his best Bond scores, up there with Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, I can't lie. And Elliot Carver, portrayed by Jonathan Pryce, is a fantastic villain, and this movie has one of my favourite Bond kills ever. It's one of the coldest kills. I think if you see my Instagram thing where I did the James Bond 25-day challenge, you'll see that I put the kill that I like from this movie there, and that's when he kills Dr. Kaufman, where he pulls up they're fighting over a gun, and then Dr. Kaufman says, "I'm just a professional doing a job," and then Bond goes, "So am I," and he shoots him, and it's just the most Ian Fleming thing ever. And I have one gripe with this film. It's not really a gripe, but it's just something that I think should have been rectified, is that the song you're hearing now, Tomorrow Never Dies, it's not a bad song, don't get me wrong, but the song that was originally supposed to take its place, Surrender by K.D. Lang, is such a good song, and the fact that it's not available on Spotify, rarely ever re-released, is a sin, because that song is one of the best Bond songs ever, and it's hardly even technically one at this point, because it was originally meant to be the title song for this movie, but they needed something with the name of the film as the title of the song, and someone who was more marketable than K.D. Lang, so they popped Sheryl Crow out and made her write this song. And it's very obvious that it was very close to being the song for this film, because it is what's woven through the score of this film, and not the Tomorrow Never Die, not the song you hear now, not the Sheryl Crow song. The K.D. Lang song, Surrender, is definitely woven throughout the entire score of this movie. And speaking of the score, another issue is when the soundtrack was released, only the first half of the movie was covered, and we still haven't to this date had a proper official release with all of the music from the latter half of the film. They did do a second release in 1999 with 19 tracks, but I still don't give a shit, because that's still not enough. That's still not going to cover the whole film, because what that is just the 15 tracks previously released, and then a few other suites maybe that are about, I don't know, 5 minutes long, that may cover parts of the rest of the film. We need a full release. If you want a full release, there is an LS Scores 2 CD release of this film that you can buy out there, but in terms of official stuff, I haven't got that yet. But other than that, Tomorrow Never Dies has fantastic action, set pieces, the script is very well done as well, and Pierce Brosnan is fantastic here, and it's a movie that I have found myself enjoying a lot more than I used to, which has occurred with this and Quantum of Solace, so that's something. Anyway, in at number 16, we have its successor, The World Is Not Enough, and obviously this is the one where you're hearing the alternate piece of music for it. I love this movie. I can't lie, this has always been one of my favourite Bond films, it still is. And I highly recommend you to go back and watch this one, because this one is one of those movies that people barely ever remember. And I think one of the best parts about it is this is a movie where the villain is a woman. And I think that sounds incredibly bad, but what I'm trying to say is it's the only Bond movie where the villain is a female. And I think that's a really important thing to think about. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. Elektra is one of the best villains in all of Bond. and it makes everyone think that Renard is the big bad, when in actual reality Renard is a henchman to Elektra. Elektra is the real big bad in this movie, and I love that so much, and I love the twists and turns that this movie goes through. I love Zukovsky. He's one of my favourite allies in all of Bond, and to see him back in What Is Not Enough makes me so happy. I love, I think Christmas Jones, a lot of people comment on her acting ability, and I can't lie, I do agree with you, but I think it does the character's fine, it doesn't bother me. David Arnold's score here is also fantastic as well, but I just love this movie so much. It's so, the opening title sequence, the pre-credit sequence is fucking brilliant, the boat chase, brilliant sequence. I just think this movie is the pinnacle of how to get a Bond movie just right. Not too much, not too little of different things, not too many jokes, not too much action, not too much sex, not too much violence. It's the perfect mix. Apart from everything after this in the list. But anyway, moving on to number 15, coming into the top 15 now, and starting with Octopussy, a movie that I used to hate, but like I said, going back and watching it, I really like this movie. It's really fun, and while I still make my argument that anything that takes place that's not in India in this movie is some of the best Bond, it really is what makes this movie brilliant. The stuff in India is still just as good as well. I think it's brilliant. The Aquastar jet sequence at the beginning of the film was brilliant. The scene where Bond chases destroys the tyres on a car and drives it on a train track and chases the train. That's fantastic. The sequence on the train is brilliant as well. I think Kamal Khan is a really cool villain. And it's good to see Maud Adams back in the Bond film after being Man with the Golden Gun. And yeah, I just think this movie is really fun and enjoyable, and a lot of people think Roger should have left at this point, and I do wholeheartedly agree with that, although there are some elements of A View to a Kill that I'm like, I mean, as much as I would have made sense for him to leave here, there's some things of A View to a Kill that I think are warrant him staying, and one of those is of course Max Zorin. But as a whole, this movie's just really fun. Q has a nice neat role here. Vin Jay's a fantastic character too. I just think it's a really just brilliantly shot movie, and I just think it's a lot of fun, which is what the latter Roger Moore movies tried to be. I just think, and I think it's brilliant. John Barry's score here is also really good as well. There's some really good pieces in the score here, but I have to admit that I really like the General Cat. I can't remember his name. General Orloff is fantastic in this movie as well. I just want to put that out there. Stephen Burkhoff as General Orloff is fantastic. Anyway, moving on to number 14. Now, I will wholeheartedly defend this movie to the sun, because Diamonds Are Forever, we're talking about 1971. And I just think this movie is so much fun to watch. It's, a lot of people say it's over the top, it's too silly. I just think that's exactly why it's so brilliant. It's just so fun, so silly. You can sit down, I can have a laugh, I can enjoy watching this movie. Sean Connery is clearly enjoying it more than he did in You Only Live Twice. That's a bonus. I love the settings, Amsterdam, America. I think Charles Gray as Blofeld is the funniest shit, but also just really cool as well, and I think it works. And Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, my god, some of the best henchmen in the Bond series, and it's very early, you know, it's just very early fun in the Bond franchise that people don't seem to, I get it why people think this movie's a bit, you know, not the greatest, but I just think it's a blast. It's so much fun. I think the score here by John Barry is easily one of my absolute favourite John Barry soundtracks, because it's so fucking good. I can't lie, almost every track is a banger, and it's literally just the pinnacle of one of the best James Bond soundtracks out there. I would regularly listen to the soundtrack. I think, you know, the Mustang chase, the stunt in this movie is really fun, and although you obviously see the funny of it goes in on one set of wheels and it comes out on the other, I think that makes the sequence just as iconic as it is. I just love this movie to the end, to the beyond, and I just think it's a blast. And, you know, that's my opinion, but if you watch it, you can just have fun with it. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, in at number 13, we have The Your Eyes Only. This is without a doubt one of my more favoured Roger Moore movies. This is one I also used to really dislike, but I've been liking this movie for a lot longer than the other two. I think this was the one I think 2016 was when I started liking this movie again. and I love this movie to bits. It's just so Ian Fleming. Like, this is the movie where Roger Moore is the most Ian Fleming character without it seeming off, because there's a scene in The Man with the Golden Gun where he wrestles with Maud Adams, and it's just so wrong. It just doesn't work. But here, it's him being Ian Fleming, but it's not like forced to be wrong. Like, it's not him trying to be Sean Connery like it is in. He's not him trying to be Sean Connery like it is in Man with the Golden Gun. It's him trying to be Ian Fleming here, and that's what makes it so good. I just love the plot of this movie. I like that there's no big bad, not megalomaniac, over the top villain. It's a spy thriller. It's not a big action movie like most of the other ones with big over the top plots. It's a spy thriller, and that's what's so good about it. I think the car chases here, the 2CV chase. My God, the 2CV chase is so good here, and I think Roger gives a fantastic performance. There's a really cool kill that I like as well here. And can we just please give a massive fucking shout out to Topol as Columbo, Minimus Columbo. Fucking fantastic. My favourite fucking ally in any Bond film. Brilliant. Love this film. The music by Bill Conti is there. I don't think the title song is one of my favourites, but it's just a really great spy thriller that really is the most down-to-earth Roger Moore movie that was really needed after Moonraker. Like, this movie brought Bond back down to earth after Moonraker, and it was desperately needed because that movie went sky high, and we needed it to be brought back to earth. And yeah, For Your Eyes Only is just really brilliant. I just love the Cold War spy thriller-esque movie that this is, and it's one of Roger's best. Speaking of, we have coming in at number 12, we have the always brilliant The Man with the Golden Gun. Now, a lot of people put this a lot lower on the list, and the only reason really why this is as high as it is for me is because this was one of the earliest Bond films I ever saw. It and Goldfinger were the two Bond movies I saw, my first ever Bond movies, and that's why I love this movie, because nostalgia. I'm not going to try and hide the fact that this is here because of nostalgia. It's here because of nostalgia. I've always loved this movie. The Astro Spiral Jump is fantastic. The Astro Spiral Jump is fantastic. And I just love the Lulu song is fantastic. John Barry's score is really cool as well. I love Christopher Lee as Francisco Scaramanga. I think he's fucking brilliant. I just love this movie as a whole. I just genuinely think, you know, it's a movie that I love. Nick Nack as well. I love everything to do with this movie. I think Roger's fantastic here. Maud Adams as well is brilliant as well. I just love this movie to bits, personally, because it's such a nostalgic movie for me. It's one of the early Bond films. I love Sheriff J.W. Pepper. Sheriff J.W. fucking Pepper is a fucking awesome. And I'll just say here that yeah, it's just that I love this movie to bits, and nothing's ever going to change that for me personally. Anyway, in at number 11, we have Roger Moore's second film as James Bond, and narrowly missing out on being in the top 10 because of the reshuffle. I can't lie. This spot was originally where Golden Gun was, and everything got moved down one to push another film up, which we'll talk about in a minute. To push another film 2 spaces up. So, narrowly missing out on being in the top 10 Bond movies, but a movie that my opinion has changed drastically recently, and that is, of course, Live and Let Die, Roger Moore's first film as James Bond. Now, do I really have to tell you how good this movie is? Because it is one of the best. I can't lie, I love everything about this movie too. The bus stunt is fantastic. I think Yappa Kotto, bless his heart, rest in peace, is fantastic as our main villain, Dr. Kananga. I think Jane Sim was brilliant as the Bond girl. There's a lot of great henchmen here as well, and the score is brilliant. I used to hate the George Martin score here, but it's fucking brilliant now. I realised my mistake. And the song, my God, the song is so good. So good. Roger Moore immediately grabs your attention as Bond here. And that's what's so fantastic about it. Obviously, the one notable thing about this film is that this is the one film from the entire era of Desmond Llewellyn being Q to not have Q in it. He was in everything from 1963 So Much of Love all the way through to 1999, so What Is Not Enough, except for this movie. It's never said why. No one knows why he wasn't in this movie, but Q is not in this movie. I think I love. This is also the introduction of Felix Leiter, played by David Hedison, who would come back to portray the character again in License to Kill. But I just think everything about this movie is fantastic. The script is brilliant as well. The action's fantastic. I just think it's a brilliant fucking movie, and it's just one of the, a pinnacle of Roger's set of Bond. And the first movie to not have a John Barry score, actually. Or the first, that's what I mean. The first one out of all the originals, with the exception of Dr. No, to not have a John Barry score, though, come back for Golden Gun. But yeah, that's what I think of this movie. Coming up at number 10, we're now in the top 10. The top 10, my top 10 James Bond movies, and starting us off for the top 10 is an awesome one, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, if you've seen No Time to Die, there are a plethora of nods to this movie, and that's cool, because this movie is brilliant. Obviously, the one thing is that George Lazenby's performance is not 100% the best, but I still think he's fun. I love Telly Savalas' Blofeld here, and I don't care if anyone tries to make out the fact that Blofeld should recognise Bond in this movie, because what happened, you only live twice. Because as far as I'm concerned, this is the movie that is literally the one Bond movie that's literally a straight up adaptation of the book. I've not read the book yet, but I've heard everyone say it, and I'm sure it is a literal straight up one-to-one adaptation of the book, which is brilliant, because of all the books to pick to do a straight up adaptation, this was the one you should do. And that score, man, that fucking score, this piece of music is just so good. It's one of the best Bond scores, one of the best Bond tracks ever. It's so good, so good. Diana Rigg shines as Tracy Bond here. Telly Savalas is brilliant as Blofeld, and it's just a movie that I think is fan-fucking-tastic. The DBS that he drives is brilliant. The Mercury Cougar chase as well in Switzerland is fantastic. The action's there, the story's there. There is the one thing that's a problem for me is that for a good chunk of the film, George Lazenby is dubbed by George Baker, so that does a bit distracting in places. When Bond is pretending to be Sir Hilary Bray, George Lazenby is dubbed by George Baker. For more realism, I suppose, but I don't like it. I don't think a lot of people do, but the action is brilliant here. The set pieces are fantastic. Visually, it's a gorgeous film. Peter Hunt really knows how to get those shots out fantastically. And fun fact, this film was the James Bond series debut for one John Glenn, who edited this film and would go on to direct. I think he also edited Moonraker and The Spiral, I'm not 100% sure. Would go on to direct For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, A View to a Kill, The Living Daylights, and License to Kill. But yeah, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is fucking brilliant. In at number 9, we have the movie. The reason why other stuff has been moved around was this movie, For Much of Love. This was originally at spot 17, which when I saw this was a cardinal sin. So I had to bump it up, and as a result of which, Living Out Loud got pushed out of the top 10, unfortunately. But this movie needs to be here, because so much of this movie, I think, when people say that Goldfinger set the standard for what would go on, I think the combination of stuff from Dr. No in this movie is what really moulded Goldfinger to be the standard, because Goldfinger takes elements from Dr. No, elements from Russia with Love, molds them together and makes a masterpiece. But without these two films, it can't have both. And I talk about stuff like here, you've got the gun barrel is perfected, well, it's perfected in Goldfinger, but more of what we know to be the modern gun barrel is here. The score is fantastic as well by John Barry. I just think Sean Connery's on top form here. This movie is so brilliant. Pedro Armendáriz as Karen Bay, one of the best allies Bond has ever had. Letty Lenya as Pleb, fantastic casting. Red Grant, the train fight with Red Grant is literally one of the best fights in all of Bond. Honest to God, it's brilliant. This movie is fantastic. Daniela Bianchi as Tatiana Romanova is also fantastic as well. This movie is so well shot, edited, it's fucking beautiful. It's masterful storytelling. at its highest form. It is fantastic, and there's a reason why this movie was bumped up to where it is, because it's brilliant. And now, in at number 9, we have, in at number 8, I believe. Yeah, my bad. In at number 8, it is The Spy Who Loved Me, Roger Moore's third film. No. Yes, third film as James Bond. And I think this is his highest one up on the list. I can't know. Yeah, this is the highest rated Roger Moore movie on this list. Yeah. So take that with what you will. In at number 8, I just think this movie is, again, one of the examples of, if you have to pick certain movies that set, are quintessential Bond movies that everyone thinks about, Goldfinger was one of them, and the other one, in my opinion, is this, because it gets so much of Bond right, and it's brilliant. The Lotus, the submarine set, the whole story is brilliant. The one thing that brings it down a little bit is the villain is nowhere near as good as Goldfinger, nowhere near as any of the more modern villains, I can't lie. And I think the one villain that people remember most from this movie is not Stromberg, it's of course Jaws. And that's fantastic, because Jaws is brilliant in this movie, and this movie is brilliant. It's just so good. The whole plot. I'm not the biggest fan of the music in this movie, but I can see why people enjoy it, and there are parts of it that are good, but it's not my favourite soundtrack. The pyramid sequence is fantastic. The whole movie is just brilliant. I love it. It's a fantastic movie. Barbara Bach as Anya Marceau is fantastic as well. I think she has great chemistry with Roger Moore. Jaws is fantastic. It's just an overall one of the best Bond movies out there, and one that you should not miss for the world. I recommend you watching it. It's a quintessential Bond, if you ask me. And coming in at number 7, we have the first Daniel Craig. No, not the first Daniel Craig movie on this, but the first Daniel Craig Bond movie. 2006's Casino Royale. Now, I think you'll be surprised by what comes directly after this, and but like I said, this movie is so brilliantly crafted as an origin story. It brings the more human side of Bond down. That's what Craig has done for the Bond films, and has brought Bond, more human, a more human character, and that's fantastic. He suffers, he goes through pain, he goes through emotions, and that's brilliant. And this movie is the movie that set that standard. And I just think Craig is fantastic as Bond here. The movie is brilliant. I love the Aston Martin DBS car sequence, is fantastic. The whole scene. This film manages to make a game of poker actually interesting. Something that the last two adaptations of Casino Royale failed to do. Of course, when I say only one of them managed to make it on this list, because fuck the other one. But it actually is a gripping and engaging scene that it's about 20 minutes long, but more than that. But it's really gripping scene that I genuinely was sat on the edge of my seat watching. Like, it made a poker game fun, and that's something that really is to be just thought about, to be honest with you. And I think the fact that it brought back director Martin Campbell to direct this film is brilliant as well. I love the Miami International sequence in this film, is brilliant as well. Great locations, great. The titles in this movie, the actual opening titles along with the song, the best in the whole franchise. IMO, just IMO, Leave Me Alone. The song by You Know My Name by Chris Cornell is a brilliant song, one of the best Bond songs out there. And I just think this movie is... I'm happy this movie was as good as it was, because it proved everyone who was saying at the time, James Bland, or he's not, or Blonde Bond, or saying he's going to be bad, he's not a good Bond. When this movie came out, all of those people suddenly just shut the fuck up, because they realised this movie is a masterpiece. Because it is. And that's what I like about it so much. It proved everyone wrong. It proved the entire general public, the press, everyone on this planet wrong. It proved that Daniel Craig is James Bond. For many people, he is the best. Not for me, personally. But I think that's proven more so by our next pick, number 6. And this may be a controversial opinion for a lot of people. But in at number 6, it is No Time to Die. Now, I'm not going to go to a depth in spoilers because that would ruin it for a lot of people who haven't seen the movie yet. But I will say, Craig is on top form here. I do love Safin here in this movie, although I do think he's underutilized, and his death is just bland and basic. Well, most Bond villains have this over-the-top death. His is bland and basic. The score here by Hans Zimmer is fantastic. Just saying, the best character in this whole movie is Paloma, period. Ana de Armas is fantastic in this movie. She manages to be badass, sexy as hell, and cute as hell, all in the space of 10 minutes, which no other Bond girl has done in the history of the Bond franchise. And I really hope if there is any character that gets a spin-off, it's her. But overall, it's a fun, enjoyable movie. I love a lot of the sequences in this movie. I love Nomi as a great character. I love where Bond is going in this movie, and the ending is something. That's what I'm going to say. But yeah, No Time to Die is fantastic. What more can I say? Coming in at number 5, now entering the top 5 Bond films, we have GoldenEye. Now, I think this movie is so near to being perfect that it physically hurts me that it's not. And the only thing, I kid you not, the only thing that's stopping me from saying this movie is a perfect Bond movie, because I think all of the movies in this top 10, in the top 5, are perfect James Bond movies. They're perfect movies, all of them are. But there is something that just brings this one a little lower than that, and that's the only reason why it's not high on this list. And unfortunately, that is the score. Eric Serra's score is the most bland, boring, and shit music I have heard in my entire life. It doesn't fit Bond. Obviously, it fits Leon very well, because a lot of the music is taken directly from Leon and plopped on the Bond, and that's the problem, because it fits Bond not at all. There's some good tracks here and there. I love the GoldenEye Overture, and there's some other stuff as well. The unused piece for the tank chases, I like that, but I can also understand why that wasn't used. Like, understandable. And it was literally halfway through production where it was changed over to be to have a different piece of music for the tank chase, because the producers were not happy with what Serra had provided them, which was included on the album. But the actual piece of music used in the tank chase was not, and it's hard to track down, but it's by John Altman, and I like that piece of music. It's quite a lot, but the rest of the score was shit. But other than that, let's talk about the actual film. Pierce Brosnan is brilliant as Bond here. The car chase, the car chases are weak here, I have to admit. The Aston Martin versus the DB5 versus the Ferrari is a good chase, but the music obviously is fucking horrendous. But also a chase that doesn't make much sense, because that Ferrari is so much faster than the Aston Martin, and somehow the Aston Martin's been able to keep up. And that for the BMW chase, well, that doesn't actually exist, because there is no chase for the BMW car, for the BMW Z3. It's a wonderful, beautiful car that I've always wanted to run, but it's driven on screen for 2 seconds, it's had a Q sequence, and then it fucks off. Obviously, there was originally supposed to be the sequence from that we see in The World Is Not Enough with the chainsaw things, was originally supposed to, the helicopter chainsaw things were originally supposed to be in this film, but it was cut due to budget constraints. So yeah, other than that, GoldenEye is literally perfect. I love the introduction to Judi Dench's M in this movie is fantastic. The introduction to Pierce Brosnan as Bond is fantastic. Alec Trevelyan as 00, not Alec Trevelyan, Sean Bean as Alec Trevelyan, fantastic. I just love everything about this movie other than the score. Both the Bond girls are fantastic. The sequences on the train are brilliant. It's just a masterpiece of a movie. It's so good. And which brings me on to the next movie, in at number 4, which is a very personal movie, so I might talk about this for quite a while. That is, of course, Skyfall. Now, this is a very, very personal movie to me, because not only was it the first Bond movie I saw in theatres, it was also a movie I studied at GCSE level. So it's a very important movie to me, but not only that, it's actually a really good movie. And every time I go on the tube now, I have the music from that scene playing in my head from this movie, and I just think about Silva running around and stuff, and I whisper to I say under my own breath when I'm about to get on a tube train, I go, Bond, get on the train. Because I love that sequence so much. This whole movie is just fantastic. To celebrate the 50th anniversary, of course, coming out in 2012, this movie is just the epitome of a perfect James Bond movie. It nails the character. Craig is fantastic. Great locations, great visuals, beautiful girls, fantastic fast cars, and really evil villains. And on the front of the villain side, Raul Silva, portrayed by Javier Bardem, one of the best Bond villains of all time. And it's just amazing. Okay, it's a masterpiece. Everything about it is fantastic. And it truly deserves to be in the number 4 spot. But one movie that deserves its spot most definitely is our next film. And you'll be wondering why, because it's the last Sean Connery movie on this list, for very good reason. And it is, of course, none other than Goldfinger. Now, this is just the quintessential James Bond movie. Everything here that people think of as a Bond movie is present in this movie. Beautiful girls, exotic locations, stunning cars, the evilest of villains, fantastic music. It's all present in this movie. This is the quintessential James Bond movie. Everyone is and everything is on top form. From costumes, behind the scenes department, the camera shots, the music, the set design, the production design, the script, the direction, the art direction, the titles, everything is just the pinnacle of brilliant. This is one of the greatest movies ever made, and it is the greatest Bond movie in my opinion. There's two that I prefer more, but it's quintessential James Bond. You know, so much of the stuff in this movie is commonly parodied in pop culture references all the time. It's one of the most pop culturally referenced movies ever. The DB5, got the Goldfinger laser scene, the Bond James Bond stuff, all of that stuff is commonly referenced, and it's from this movie. Oddjob, one of the most famous henchmen of all time. Goldfinger, played by Gert Frobe, fantastic. This is the quintessential James Bond movie, and I won't hear the end of it. It is one of the greatest movies of all time, and it saddens me that I used to think this movie was shit, because I was an idiot. It's a masterpiece, and there is no denying that. There's just happens to be two movies that I think are slightly better than that, and one of which is my number 2 spot, and you'll notice a pattern with number 1 and 2. Certainly. The Living Daylights. The first Timothy Dalton movie on this list. And you notice that there's only one movie left. And this is the first Timothy Dalton movie. And he did too. So if you know, you know. But this movie is so good. Like, the car chase is brilliant. It's almost like a remake of Goldfinger, but not at the same time, because it has all the same elements that Goldfinger had that made that brilliant. Beautiful locations, stunning women, fantastic cars, great music. The only thing it lacks in the department is really good villains, but I think that's what makes this more, like I said, the spy thriller than big over-the-top action movie, and I think that's what makes this movie so good. It has down-to-earth villains for a down-to-earth Bond, and that's what both of Timothy Dalton's movies have. Down-to-earth, realistic villains that aren't take over the world. It's, I want to win the war with guns and shit. I want to be an arms dealer. I want to be a drug dealer, and I killed your friend. That's what they are in the Timothy Dalton movies, and that's brilliant. We can't not talk about this movie without talking about the fact that this is the last James Bond movie ever to have a score by John Barry, and it's one of his best, if not his actual best, other than Guns N' Forever. And that also goes to the title track, as the title track here is my favourite James Bond song ever, sung by a-ha. It's a brilliant song with a brilliant movie. The car chase is brilliant. Martin Diablo is fantastic as Karl Mallovy. I love the car chase specifically, but there's a number of other sequences in this movie that are fantastic, like the Mujahideen sequences. The sequences at the airbase are fantastic. The sequences in Tangier is really cool. I just love where this movie goes, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, which leads me on to talking about the number 1 James Bond movie in my opinion. In at number 1, I don't know if you've guessed it or not, but you should be able to guess it by now. It is, of course, License to Kill. Everything about this movie is perfect in my opinion. It's gritty, it's down to earth, it's the most Ian Fleming James Bond movie out there, and it has the most Ian Fleming James Bond in it, and that's what makes it brilliant. Fran Sanchez is such a brilliant villain in my opinion. Both the Bond girls here are fantastic. There's a lot of backup characters here, but it's obviously a movie that you know, it's really hard to talk about it, and you know, because it's such a brilliant movie, but there's so little you can say about it. I mean, the score by Michael Kamen is fantastic. I don't really like a lot of the posters for this movie, are just not very good, which is something it very much struggled in the marketing department. And likewise, it struggled to make even a dent in the box office because it was one of the lowest grossing, if not the single lowest grossing James Bond movie ever made, which is really a shame. But it had stiff competition in the summer of '89, you know, Batman, Indiana Jones, so many other movies. But for me, it tops the top of the top for James Bond movies, in my opinion. I just think it's so fantastic. I've watched this movie so many times now. I think it's brilliant. The tanker chase is fantastic, and it's not your quintessential James Bond movie. And it tells you, like, right off the bat, with the gun barrel music not being there, it's got a harder edge to it, which is really fantastic to it. And I think that's what really makes this movie so good. It tells you right off the bat, this ain't your grandmother's James Bond movie, okay? This is some serious shit. If you have children in the audience, I would advise you leaving because they'll be scarred for life. But it's just the epitome of a James Bond movie, and I love it for that reason. And yeah, this has been my ranking of the James Bond movies. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a different video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it actually went well in the actual edit. But yeah, expect more of this kind of video soon. I'm working on gameplay videos. And yeah, I just thank you so much for watching. Check out the other stuff. Obviously, this is the first video I've recorded after the name change, so I'll go through that a bit. I announced on Discord today, and have subsequently changed the channel names, is that I'm retiring the Green Flower 910 name from the YouTube channels, not from Twitter, Instagram, or any of that stuff. All of that stuff is still Green Flower 910. But the YouTube channel is now officially Bill Wass Film Reviews, and Green Flower 2 is now Bill Wass Extra. So those are temp names though. I will be changing them eventually to something else, but I just wanted to retire the Green Flower name because I'm now still professional, but I'm still a movie reviewer, and being called Green Flower 910, it's not good. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, more videos coming soon, and yeah, just have a wonderful day. And I do recommend you watch all of these movies. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and bye bye for now. Nothing more, nothing less. Oh.